I'm Amanda.Gibbs, the CEO of the African SAP User Group. Welcome to Conversation Starters, a platform for sharing SAP conversations and insight in this new audio realm. The podcast landscape has grown phenomenally in recent years, and this article, for instance, found that the number of South African podcast listeners will grow to 4.8 million by 2027, up from 3.2 million in 2023. Globally, podcast audiences tune into their favorite shows on a daily and weekly basis, and the utility of this medium for communication should not be underestimated. AFSUG is making use of this growing medium to share stories and insights with our communities faster and even more conveniently. Conversation Starters is where SAP conversations begin. I'm excited to introduce our series host, Louise Steenekamp. A seasoned IT industry veteran, Louise will spearhead these conversations with industry leaders and get under the skin like only a conversation with her can do. Brands across our community should use this opportunity to communicate through our show, and you will see these branded opportunities across the first episode, providing access to a tech-savvy, engaged audience like you. To make Conversation Starters a truly interactive platform, we invite our listeners to engage actively. Share your thoughts, suggest your topics, pose questions, and together, let's transform Conversation Starters into a thriving community of SAP users. Contact details are in the show notes. And so, let's start the conversation. Here is 51 Questions with Louise Steenekamp.
That's so interesting, right?
I know, so why don't we sit down and have a bit of a conversation about it?
Sounds good.
Right, so Louise, you just told me that you live and thrive on podcasts.
I love podcasts.
So tell me a little bit about the podcasts that you like.
Oh, it's all over the show. I've got some neuroscience ones, I've got health and fitness ones, I've got world stuff ones, I've got a few favorites. So,
nice.
Depending on the sequence in which they release episodes, I'm on one or the other.
Stunning. I've got a few questions here. So, funny enough, SAP is 51, and I thought it would be clever to ask you 51 questions today.
Oh my gosh.
So let's do a conversation starter
Okay.
and kick off.
Perfect.
So what is your favorite podcast?
Andrew Huberman, Huberman Labs. He's a neuroscientist and ophthalmologist.
And what does he talk about?
Oh, all sorts of things. He's got a lab in the States, so they do all kinds of research into eyes, immune system, skin, whatever health is topical.
Quite in line with where you are at the moment at Aspen. So have you ever hosted a podcast before?
I have not, no.
So just a little bit of a question about what do you love about South Africa?
Everything. What is not to love? We've got soul, we've got potential.
And
I
Ubuntu.
absolutely love it. Exactly, and Ubuntu. I love the country.
So what strategies do you use to stay progressive in your field?
Sure. Things change all the time very fast, so it's just trying to be open to all the information that comes in. I have a few news feeds and a few daily mails with headlines, and they're quite useful to filter out. So you can check the headlines, and if there's something that looks interesting, you can explore further, and that helps with the filtering.
Yeah. So can you share your journey and how you got started in the IT industry?
Sure. many moons ago, way back in the 90s. My first IT job was actually in retail, in a little shop in a shopping centre in Welkom, aka Circle City of all places. And my fondest memory of that job, or over and above, it was still easy. People would bring in their games and there was something wrong and you could just fix it on a floppy and give it back. But the big event was when internet launched in South Africa. I was working in the shop, and I remember one Friday night during late night trading, we demoed the internet to people, and we could show how you type something in and then it goes all the way to the States and then an answer comes back seconds later. So yeah, I think our generation saw a lot of changes, but that was definitely my fondest memory.
Oh, that's exciting. So can you name 3 things that you love most about SAP?
Firstly, just the foresight that went into it. I mean, we're only really starting to reap some of the benefits now that guys in the 70s already envisioned. So that growth, I mean, it's been the strongest ERP since forever and still going strong. It's diversified. There's almost nothing that you can't do somewhere on an SAP platform. Yeah. It's just really comprehensive.
And I think with Joule and AI now, it's going to be more exciting in future.
Absolutely.
So how do you view AI, as a friend or a foe?
That's a very interesting question. So I definitely view it as a friend. I do think that I would err on the side of the open letter, saying that it's fantastic where it is now, but we need to slow down not necessarily development, but letting it loose, because we're not ready for it. Yeah. So I definitely don't have a doomsday prophecy thing about AI taking over the world. However, considering that ChatGPT, for instance, is said to have an IQ equivalent of about 155 at the moment, it's a very useful tool because you can it's like having a conversation with an intelligent human. But that's 10x the previous version's IQ. If they 10x the next version, it's going to be smarter than all of us. We're not going to be able to understand it.
We're going to stay behind.
Yeah, I think we should just tell AI what all the human problems are, which we haven't been able to fix in all of human existence. Get it to find the solution and work with it. It can run everything. It can just tell us what to do to protect us from ourselves.
That's quite interesting. So in your mind, who wins the race? Google versus OpenAI?
I'm going to have to say OpenAI.
I kind of agree with you on that one. So what motivates you to contribute to the AFSUG community?
Oh, it's been my home forever, since its inception. There's so many people involved that I kind of grew up with in the SAP industry. I can't even think of not being involved in the community somehow.
It feels like family.
It does. You can see that at every event it's like a family reunion.
Absolutely. Do you prefer the beach or the bush?
The bush.
I thought so. Could you share one of your most memorable experiences in the IT industry?
I think I did earlier with my internet example.
Okay.
That was amazing.
Yeah. Can you describe how you have seen this SAP user community evolve over the years?
So if I think back to earlier years, it was all about tech. It was technology, and it was techies talking about technology. I think that's evolved dramatically, and I think it's probably due to a few things. Technology is such an ingrained part in everybody's job these days that the technology conversation has kind of evolved into business people having the technology conversation, often not even realizing that they're having a technology conversation. So I do find that the forums, the sessions, the events are much more business driven and enabled by technology. It's no longer techies talking to techies about tech.
Yeah, it's not just for IT people, it's actually for anyone. So, what do you perceive the biggest challenge facing the SAP community today?
I think just the sheer vast amount of information and availability of tools. I think choice in general is causing a lot of angst, whether you're looking at food, clothing, cars, technology, anything. There's just so much choice. It's almost analysis paralysis. And it's easy to get distracted with all the fancy stuff, even within the SAP environment. So I think one of the biggest challenges is to stay focused, have that compass, and have that vision and work towards it, and the rest of the stuff should fall into place.
So do you prefer dogs or cats?
Dogs, big dogs.
Do you prefer coffee or tea?
Coffee, definitely, and even better if it's a mocha, because then you add chocolate and extra caffeine.
So talking about coffee, what's brewing in the regulatory... What's brewing in the regulatory environment that you think IT leaders should be thinking more about?
Probably data privacy is one of the big things. And I think that is an area that most of the technologies are going to evolve in even further. I think ERP in general is going to become much more governance driven in terms of how we implement systems. Over time, governance has gotten stricter. Yeah. Regulatory is tricky in that you are also then dependent on the region. They differ. There are nuances between one region and another. So for implementing something and rolling it out, if you're a multinational, those are just extra things that you need to take into consideration.
Yeah.
But who am I to answer? Let's ask Saul over there.
Bring him into the conversation. What has been your biggest achievement within the SAP ecosystem to date?
Ooh, that is an interesting question. I think some of my earlier projects, and they probably just are close to the heart, because if I think back to my first end-to-end implementation, that was really special. The second one especially, we would arrive on site, start with the project, only to find that the people, I was looking after training at the time. So before that, I'd done classroom training, creating training courses and materials and presenting training, but now this was to do it for the project. And you arrive on site and you realize, but the people aren't computer literate. Then I have to move from manual processes onto SAP in their daily job. And then you find out that some of them aren't necessarily English literate. So you have to run programs to get their language skills to where you would need them, the computer literacy skills, the basic computer skills, and then SAP. Those were amazing projects. I mean, we would develop training guides, quick reference guides, laminated, sized specifically for overall pockets. And to me, what was special is going back a few years later for other projects, and the guys were still using those same materials.
Oh, wow.
Those were wonderful. We worked our butts off, but yeah, those were the days of the big projects.
Probably seeing the growth of the people as well.
Absolutely.
That's wonderful.
No, absolutely. A lot of them, I always find it interesting when you do one of these implementations, because you have the consultants and then you've got the business people who are now exposed to this technology world. And there's always this divide. Some of them say, ooh, I want to chase that. Others say, I don't want to do any project like this ever again in my life. So you do get that people evolve in there, but either way, they definitely do grow through that project.
So how do you envision the future of the SAP user community? And I know that we are going to Sugan in April, your first time, where you're going to be in touch with so many international user groups.
Yes.
And I think that's going to be quite interesting. But what do you see the future of user groups?
I do see the business conversation evolving, and just more collaboration, more networking. I find it fascinating when you get people from different industries together and they start that conversation, and they sometimes, one of them has solved a problem that the other one has, even though they're in completely different industries. So I think if we can create an environment that fosters that collaboration and networking and having those conversations, then it kind of grows itself.
Yes, I agree. And what role do you see other user groups like AFSUG playing in the future of SAP, is the SAP ecosystem?
Other than AFSUG?
What role do you see other... No, I'm trying again. What role do you see user groups like AFSUG playing in shaping the future of the SAP ecosystem?
So that, I'm very glad you asked that question, because I don't think people understand or necessarily realize, or were ever told perhaps, the impact that those user group networks have back to SAP. The fact that you get view and sight of things that are coming down the pipeline, you get to influence them. The fact that your customers that you represent actually have a voice back to SAP for various things. And I don't think it's well known how many of those things have actually ended up in changes in technology or changes in the way things are implemented,
Yes.
which benefits them. So I think that that's definitely a message that needs to get out there.
Yes, and I think every customer has a voice.
For sure.
And that's visible through the user group. What's your approach to fostering innovation within the SAP user community?
Just networking, collaboration. When you get people together, magic happens.
Absolutely. And one idea sparks another.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Can you share an experience where you had to overcome a significant hurdle in your SAP journey?
I think the one was definitely what I mentioned before with projects. You don't get more money or more time, but you get there and the landscape doesn't look necessarily like you thought it would. Another one would probably be when I moved out of the training role, because you tend to have a label or a hat. So if you enter the market in training, then people always see you as a trainer. And so with any discipline. So I think making that switch after years of wearing the training hat,
yes.
Getting into other roles.
I think that counts for many roles that people are in.
Yeah, for sure.
And to step into another role is a challenge.
Definitely, yeah.
So how do you think the SAP user community can better collaborate to solve common challenges?
Just by having more conversations. I do think that thing of focus and not falling for all the distractions of daily life definitely would help. And I mean, that it almost, I'm going to make a weird connection now, but it almost goes back to the AI conversation. If the AI tools are learning from humans, then we should be voicing the right things so that it can learn in the right way.
Yes.
So that when it grows on its own, it's got the right attitude and the right intent, and can come up with all the solutions that we don't even know the problems exist for.
Yes. So we've just started a Gen Connect network where some of the young people just entering the market is coming in. And what you're saying now is actually let's have those conversations with those young people as well and involve them.
And it's really good to see that, Amanda, because in the 90s, early 2000s, when we had these huge projects, there was a natural career path for young consultants, because you would have a big project team and the young consultants would be working under the wings of the more senior consultants. Then at some point customers started saying, hang on, we don't want people to learn on our time. You bring your senior guys here and they must, I just want 5 people, not 25, and they must do everything. So I do think we've got a gap, because then you stopped that incubator in a way, or slowed it down, didn't necessarily stop it.
Yeah.
But you now have this weird gap in generations almost, where the really senior consultants are almost retiring or have retired, and there are young ones, but that bit in between I find is, that needs to be nurtured, because there's so many things that you learn on a project that you don't find in books, that you're never going to learn in the classroom, and those are the real world things. Those are what gives you the ability to take your academic knowledge and apply to the context that you're operating in.
Yeah. Okay, so how do you see technologies like AI and machine learning influencing the SAP landscape?
Imagine you're a CFO and you need certain analysis done of a certain type of transaction, and you can talk to your SAP system the way you would talk to a human. Well, I don't know if they've got voice yet, I don't think so, but talk type, communicate. Yes. So you could say, give me this report based on those transactions for this year, and it can generate it. You no longer need to go through a whole process of scoping, doing designs, testing, all of that stuff. It just enables the self-help abilities of these tools, which turns around the information so much faster for people to make decisions with. Because that's what it is, right? We need information to make decisions.
So I'm just wondering now, and this is not one of the questions, but how interesting is this? So now you can almost cut out some of the people that you would have spoken to, because suddenly you're using AI to communicate with and give you the answers that you might have gotten from somebody down the line.
Very true. There is a caveat though, and what typically happens when people start diving into data themselves is they look at the numbers and it doesn't look like what they think it should look like. So they're still going to go to the IT teams and say something's wrong with the data, and then they'll hear, okay, no, but actually you need to apply this filter and you didn't consider that and this. Yeah. So there will still be a lot of that. Sometimes these things sound like they're making your life easier, and they might be, but they might also be causing more distractions for the other teams who now have to. But you know, it's a journey.
Yeah. It's a learning for everyone.
Exactly.
Yeah, interesting, hey? So how, if you could have a sundowner anywhere in South Africa, where would that be?
Ooh, it would. I'm torn between just plain bushveld. Okay, let's do this. If it's summer, then somewhere in the bushveld, on a nice hill, seeing just mountains of greenery and the sun setting. In winter, it would be next to a trout dam, hopefully after I've caught lots of fish, with the sun reflecting on the water as it goes down.
Oh, that sounds awesome. Tell me, what is your favorite dish?
I'm going to sound really boring now and say curry and rice.
Oh, something nice
Love
and warm.
curry, yeah.
And your favorite restaurant?
I would say, I don't know if it still exists, but there used to be a place called Key 4 on the waterfront in Cape Town.
Oh,
Love
yeah.
the place, yeah.
Okay.
I love seafood, so.
Oh, nice. Okay, I like meat, so yeah, we'll have to make a compromise if we go to lunch. So what strategies do you use to make the SAP user community more inclusive and diverse? What do you suggest us as AFSUG would look at?
I think perhaps some cross-functional forums. What we tend to find, and you do get some of them, for instance, in the S4HANA one, you've got multiple functions that collaborate in there. Because what you really want is a diversity of thinking. So something like ensuring that you've got representation of different generations. I mean, we're dealing with 4 generations in the workplace now. So bringing that diversity of thinking in, different backgrounds, different cultures, different careers. I think the more diverse. One thing I do think that one needs to just be careful of is that you need the diversity to be equal as well. You can't have 2 of one and 10 of another, because then, you know, it kind of defeats the purpose. But yes. I think, again, getting enough different people to have a conversation will spark its own life.
So what resources would you recommend for someone starting their journey in the SAP ecosystem?
Oh, another interesting one. So you do get a lot of content. There are some MOOCs that offer free courseware, for instance. I feel that forums where, again, people are having a conversation, so something is posted about a technology or a feature or a enhancement, and there's a conversation happening about people and how they apply it, because I think that's the tricky part.
Yeah.
Someone entering the market, and I'm making an assumption here that it's probably a younger person who might not have had the work background. So I think engaging in forums where you do have people with the experience. Now, when you look at something like reciprocal mentoring as well, there's a lot that I'm one of those now, us older folk. There's a lot of stuff that we can learn from the youngsters,
yes.
And vice versa. So I think, again, just engaging with that, with those audiences and and seeing how they apply certain things. It's very tricky to say to someone, start here or start there. I don't think there's really the best place. It's where you find the best opportunity that fulfills your own need in terms of the kind of stuff you're interested in. So if you're interested in finance, obviously you might want to start in finance, but now there's also a myriad of choices. Do you go for the analytics side? Do you go for the straightforward finance side? Do you go for the reporting side? Do you go for integration? So I would say just have a look at those forums and see what sparks, and then see if you can navigate your way through from there.
And it was interesting now because we had a discussion just yesterday with the collaboration forum ladies, and they were mentioning that we are definitely looking at a mentorship type of engagement with some of the youth. So I think watch the space. We are working on something specific for that.
I love it, and we've actually also seen on projects where you've got graduates, for instance, they come with such a fresh view, and they ask a myriad of questions. You'll have a workshop for a day, and then the next day they will have 150 questions, and it's so good to just make yourself again review your own thinking, because we all fall into our old paradigms. So just to get yourself out of that paradigm, it's really awesome to bring them in.
Yeah, one of the ladies was actually mentioning that you can learn so much from young people because they just have a fresh view on what they want to understand and learn.
Exactly, and without any of the legacy of, no, but this won't work, and we can't do that, and we've always done this. They just, they come in with that energy. I really enjoy it.
Absolutely. Great. So how do you think the SAP user community can contribute to the SAP evolution and growth?
By speaking up, by bringing their concerns, their ideas, their challenges, all of that to the user group community, for us to then take up to SAP through those networks. That's exactly what they exist for. Absolutely. And again, I don't think customers always realize the power that they have.
No, I don't think they do. And bringing it to our attention can actually help them.
Yeah, and I mean, last time I checked, something bizarre, like almost 80% of all business-to-business transactions touch an SAP system somewhere. I always tell people, if you shop at many of the retailers or bank at most of the banks, you're an SAP customer, essentially.
Absolutely. Can you share a time when you were particularly inspired by a conversation within the SAP user community?
I don't think I can pick one. It's every time the group gets together, you have new ideas. There's energy. Yeah, there's definitely. I can't now think of a specific one that stands out, but I know magic happens when people come together.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. What qualities do you believe are essential for success in the user community?
Grit, tenacity, endurance, open-mindedness.
Okay. How has your vision for the SAP user community changed over the years?
I do think, and I'm going to come back to a previous answer, in the user group discussions and forums moving from technology into business. I think those business conversations can definitely be expanded. I think as we come, as new tools and technology emerge, like the AI, that's stuff that we need to have conversations about. Very often we don't, because we don't necessarily know of people who have implemented that stuff. But nothing stops us, actually, within the user community to bring the messages. I mean, we do a lot of events online anyway, so why not bring the experts who have implemented this elsewhere, just to expose our local communities also to, the art of the possible.
Absolutely.
So I think that's probably on us as well to facilitate those conversations.
Yes.
I find as South Africans, we often tend to want to check things out first. We'll see if it works, and then we'll decide.
Yes.
So bring the stuff that works so that we can see.
And I think we're giving people an opportunity to actually come and showcase an implementation that's worked well, because so many people can learn from that.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's what it's about, hey?
It is, absolutely. And especially if you look at a value chain, you know, you might have a manufacturer, a distributor, a wholesaler, and a retail outlet all on SAP, not necessarily working together.
Yes.
So why not have those discussions where you follow a story?
Absolutely.
You know, and see how these things fit together. And because what you would then find if you don't have that cohesive conversation is that because their systems are integrated, there's so much more time that needs to now be spent on those systems talking to each other and swapping transactions, whatever. Whereas if you had a forum where they can just co-design or just share their ideas and look at how that will impact each other, you know, I think they can achieve a lot. Yeah, very powerful.
What is one change you'd like to see in the SAP ecosystem in the coming years?
I think some of the exciting developments. So you've got AI, you've got advanced cloud computing, you've got the business technology platform enhancing. I think a lot of these things were also developed in isolation of each other.
Yes.
You know, we've got a tool, you've got something that does this thing much better, so let's just buy you, but you're still basically operating itself. I think that connective tissue and smoothing out those, let's call it technical conversations between the tools, would definitely be helpful.
It's almost like there's always silos somewhere.
Yes, exactly.
And connecting them together would make a huge difference because people would understand it better.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, can you talk about a time when you had to adapt a significant change within the SAP landscape?
Ooh, big one. R3 to, what was it then, ECC, to S4, major jumps in technology.
Yeah.
I entered in the R3 days. So ECC was already a step up, and then S4. I mean, I remember those demos of in-memory computing and how fast things were now being turned around, and your ability to now be able to transact and analyze in the same database. Those are massive changes.
Yeah.
And then, you know, move to cloud. And now all the advantages that offers you. I mean, edge computing, so your connectors that connect to your machinery and equipment with the ability to then bring that data in and analyze and transact. I think pushing more towards edge computing as well, so that some of the actual computing or transactioning happens on the proverbial coal face.
Yes.
Would also be nice. Blockchain, another one. You know, it certainly lends itself to much more robust transactioning in supply chain, procurement, finance.
Yes.
Yeah, so there's I think
ever evolving.
Ever evolving.
Right, so how do you balance the needs and expectations of different stakeholders within the SAP community? Obviously, we work with community members, but how do you think that would work?
Again, I think it's about conversation. You know, it's very often if there's resistance or reluctance, it's just because people don't understand either the context or the impact. And we all, I think, guilty of that, you know. Yeah. I think I want this because I've got this problem. But if I told you this problem, you would actually be able to help me achieve the best solution for that, which is this.
Yes.
But because I tried to solution it by myself, I think I need this. So if I ask you for this, you're going to give me this.
Yes.
But actually what would have solved this problem better was that. But I didn't tell you this problem, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I know exactly what you're talking about. So what are some of the misconceptions about the SAP ecosystem that you'd like to clear up?
I think a lot of people, when they talk, it sounds like us and them in terms of SAP as a technology and the business needs. You know, you hear big media stories about when things go wrong. It's not the technology. It's most of the time the way that it was implemented, and there's usually reasons why things go wrong. You don't hear big stories about how things go right.
Yes.
So I think, you do need to come back to your question about stakeholder management.
Yeah,
Stakeholder
what are
expectations.
some of the misconceptions?
Oh, sorry, that was the previous question. Too many questions. Yes, so the misconception is definitely that it's an us and them thing.
Yes.
SAP is not the enemy. And the consultants implementing it aren't trying to squeeze the most out of you as a customer.
Yes.
Everyone is working in this ecosystem to make it work for everyone, and that's exactly where the power is of the SAP ecosystem, is because there is a lot of collaboration. This thing can just grow so much better.
And I guess it's also, if you connect it with the user group, it actually makes conversations easier because you can actually connect with somebody that might have the same problem and get some answers that you need. So yeah, that's quite nice. We almost to the end, but let's get there. How do you manage work-life balance in this fast-paced tech industry?
So my view on that has always been, don't stress yourself about work and life, because they're not two separate things. In my view, the more you integrate them, actually the better. My work is just as much a part of me as my family is.
Yeah.
I don't see it as an either or. You do need to find the balance, yes, absolutely, but I don't think the balance is something external, it's something internal. Yeah. If you're a person who's going to find the balance in a stressful environment, you are also the person who's going to find the balance in a peaceful environment. If you're the person who's going to stress in a peaceful environment, you're going to be on steroids. Well, hopefully not literally. in a high stress environment. So I definitely think it's an internal mechanism, and it's the way you look at things, not the things themselves.
Yeah. And what is your favorite book or resource on SAP?
Our favorite resource would again be those forums. You have lots of discussion forums, and I've used some of them as well. It's really nice to pop a question and get other customers, answering.
Yes.
So definitely the forums where there are discussion groups that can add flavor to content.
Yes. Okay. What is your favorite fiction or non-fiction book or author?
Ooh, definitely Sapiens, Yuval Noah Harari, for sure.
Can you share a breakthrough moment in your career in the SAP ecosystem?
I think I'm going to go back to that first end-to-end project that I did. That was definitely...
Stays with you.
It absolutely does. And it's funny because if you speak to anyone now who was part of that project team, we did a few projects together, everyone talks about, especially that first project. That was just a special one.
Yeah.
For me.
Made an impression with everyone. Okay. How important do you think networking is in the community? I know we've spoken about this.
I think I've answered that question more than 51 times.
But I think it's important to also stress that the opportunities are there to network with people. What's the most rewarding part of working in this SAP ecosystem, or in what you're doing in your career at the moment?
I think seeing the youngsters develop and seeing people's creativity, it always amazes me that a lot of these projects, I always say you can't reduce the workload, because even though you've done this a million times in a million different ways, every time you implement something or come up with a new idea, you have to put in the work. You have to understand exactly what the requirement is. You have to understand how it fits the context. You have to understand how the people who are going to have to adopt this and run with it are viewing it, and how it's going to help them. So I think that it's almost like life. We think the joy comes from achieving the something, but the joy actually comes from working towards achieving the something.
Yes.
And I think SAP is a very good example of that, because you just always have to put in the work.
And you get the results, and that's what's rewarding.
Yeah.
Can you share a prediction about the future of AI in SAP?
Hopefully it will be of the nature that it helps us and it enhances users' experience with SAP, and it makes SAP less like this big thing that they have to tackle. It makes it more intuitive, so that they can use it as a colleague. Hopefully it doesn't go and program itself to the extent that we can't understand it, because that's another risk.
Right. So how do you approach problem solving in your work?
Again, conversations. Ask the why questions. Get to the nitty-gritties of what the actual root problem is. And speak to the people who are involved. Very often the solution lies right there.
Yeah. So we're talking about young people and, maybe being a mentor, or, who has been your biggest influence in your career, and a mentor or somebody that you think helped you to achieve something great?
I would say there were a number of them. One that definitely stands out was a project manager. And just, he's an engineer, so he runs projects like this. Yeah. And things like, so I can be let's go with where the wind blows type of person. So I really enjoy working with someone who is more structured.
Yes.
And he really taught me those things, like you would bring him your project plan, which obviously feeds into his project plan, and he would go, but aren't you having meetings with people? Well, no, I am, but you've just put the milestones. He says, but if it's not in here, you can't spend time on it, so it needs to go in there. So just getting to actually, these are all the things that make up the work, and understanding what the work is, so that you can get through that. But yeah, very, very great guy. Doesn't matter what the pressure is, just always steadfast.
Yeah.
There's a plan. If we need to tweak the plan, we tweak the plan, but you get it done.
Good. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Oh, pause.
Uh-huh.
To pause. I can jump right in, whether it's jumping in and doing or jumping in and talking. I think the best advice I've ever received was just pause, just take a breath.
Okay.
Just think about it before you react or respond.
And I guess that comes with a bit of experience as well.
Yes, definitely.
How do you keep your skills up to date with the latest SAP developments?
Skills is a big word, because my role is not of such that I'm configuring or doing anything technical on SAP at the moment. I do like to stay on top of things and developments, even if it's just to ask the prodding questions. And there and again, you've got news feeds, you've got blogs, those emails that I spoke of before that come into your mailbox, and you've got the highlights, and you can go and explore whatever they are.
Yes.
I am also a big fan of using the likes of ChatGPT. So if I see 4 articles and I know I'm not going to have time to read them because I've got a busy day, I just give ChatGPT the URLs and say, summarize in a paragraph.
And you read it in once.
Yeah, exactly.
Very clever.
So I'm definitely using my intelligent friend called ChatGPT. Don't want to get too smart too quick, but I like it where it is.
Great. Can you share an interesting fact about SAP that most people don't know?
Sure, that most people don't know. That's tricky, because I don't know what most people know. Let's go with your 51 questions. It would have been 52 if you'd gone with when the 5 engineers started SAP, because that was 1972. 1973 was when they launched the first version of SAP.
Okay.
That's a fact that I don't know if everyone knows.
Oh, that's
Some
quite
people won't
interesting.
know it.
Okay. Finally, as we embark on this journey with conversation starters,
Yes.
what's your hope for the future with these podcasts?
I really hope that we get to serve the user community. I hope that we get to funnel some of the information to people in a way that they enjoy consuming.
Yes.
And that's a little bit different perhaps to the things that we've done in the past, and that it's something that they can engage with, that they can ask lots of questions about, and that we can provide the content that needs to get out there.
Yes. And then what message would you like to give to our listeners? And we start the journey, with conversation starters. What's your message?
Let's have fun. Let's have fun. Work doesn't have to be a slog.
Absolutely.
Creative is fun.
And share.
Solving puzzles is fun. Solutions is fun. Let's just have fun.
Wonderful. So, Louise, I just want to thank you. And I know that you're the guest today. And from here on, you will be the host of Conversation Starters.
And I'll get to ask the questions.
So I just wanted to thank you and wish you luck for all the upcoming events that we're going to be hosting.
Thank you, Amanda.
And let's enjoy.
Indeed, and thank you.